right, we're on Politics of the Weekend. Welcome back. And it's important that you be part of this discussion. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47KE. Also the numbers to call. We open the lines as from now. You can call in and weigh in your sentiments in regards to these issues that we are discussing this morning. We're all about, like I said, Politics of the Weekend. We take a look at what it is that has taken center stage over the weekend and what it is that we carry to this new week as we take a look at what direction it will take. Joining me this morning for the conversation, Joy Mdivo, that is the advocate of the High Court, and also we have Alenga Turstad, communications consultant. It's always a tongue twister to, say Alenga's name, but all the same I try, like he says. Karibu sana, lady and gentlemen. Gentlemen, not men.
Thank you for having us.
Can you say that name, by the way, Joy? Alenga, wacha hivyo unamchekelea. Alenga Toro
is Alenga T for me.
Alenga is good enough, right?
I'll end up saying Alenga Turus.
Let's stick to that. All the same, yes, you're all looking good. And thank you for finding time for us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we go straight to it, and we've seen, before we even take a look at what it is that we've seen over the weekend, the politics of the Senate, or the politics of revenue sharing, and, the stalemate that we witnessed today. First of all, what are your expectations for this beautiful day, the 9th time Senate sitting down, amid talks of threats, amid talks of political interference? What are we likely to get today?
Maybe if I can venture a suggestion. With what we have seen so far, the attempt was supposed to be to get consensus, was try to get people talking to each other and coming up with a common solution. But what we have seen is more caucusing, like-minded people meeting, preaching to the choir, as it were, and not really reaching out to the opposite side of the aisle or the divide in this particular matter, because everybody is across each aisle. So today, I'm not seeing them coming up with any consensus. What we will see is a lot of what we have seen before. Plenty of debate, plenty of argument, a lot of filibustering, and at the end of the day, yet another adjournment, because even over the weekend, as late as yesterday, the pictures that were coming out were still of people in two very different camps. Yeah. Rumors of intimidation and arrests and KRA demands, all manner of tactics that tell me there's not much consensus building going on, but we are still trying to be not at war, but at variance with each other. So what do I expect from the Senate today? Absolutely nothing.
All right, well, interesting coming to you, Alenga. If at all, just, if they are able to reach a truce, do you suppose then the decision will be half-baked?
The last time we met here, Linda, you asked the same question, and I told you I was not expecting anything to come out of the Senate. But this boils down to a type of politics where we're used to talking to each other rather than talking with each other. Yeah. If you see the drama that has played in the public gallery from that time we talked, it's still the same thing. And going into that Senate, today will still be the same. You will hear a lot of points of order here and there, a lot of bickering in the Senate, and at the end of the day, it is highly unlikely that they're going to come up with a decision that binds the country together. But most fundamental to talk about is the reason why we have the Senate. We have the Senate so that the Senate prepares the direction the country goes. But when we have a Senate that looks like ours is, there's factions within it, and there's points of supremacy all the time, then it puts us as citizens in a very difficult situation where we do not know what is going on. But again, it is important for the Senate to put country first today. If they can manage to do that, then that would be that would be a very good thing for them. But it's just we need to wait and see what comes out of it today.
What does it speak? And now that you mentioned what we've seen or witnessed over the weekend, the likelihoods of arrest on senators who are opposed to the revenue formula. I mean, what does it speak about a country that is in the quest of, attaining democracy in totality, attaining that maturity on matters democracy? I mean, at this time and age, and while some of them would argue that they're allegations, I think we've witnessed, what we've seen. We've seen pictures, we've seen videos, and even whilst we've had talks of, some of the accounts of these senators being frozen for, just to curtail them, just to get them to this point where they would agree with what it is their political, key figures are suggesting.
I think the art of discussion and the art of disagreeing agreeably is something that has been lost not just to our parliamentarians, but to this generation, basically. I think Kenyans have gotten to a place where we are very loud. We are happy for a lynching. We scream without knowing what we are screaming about. And you see this even on social media, where somebody can make a comment. People who have absolutely no context of where it comes from will rain down on this person, and a few people are falling in the crosshairs of this internet mob justice. But why I'm saying this in relation to our parliamentarians is basically because Parliament is a place where debate is supposed to be an art. You should be, if you've watched the debate, for example, in the British Parliament, you should be able to address the opposing party, even if you're using very caustic terms, but very gentlemanly terms. But in Kenya, for some reason, we have felt people who are our equals, our contemporaries, we can somehow talk down on them and beat them into submission, into understanding and believing our point of view by force. There has to be a point where we say, you know what, let us disagree agreeably. I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, but tell you what, we are gentlemen. That's the position where we are at. Let's agree that it ends there. Let's move on. That's something we are not seeing, because can you imagine discussing a matter 9 times? Yeah. Does it even make any sense? By now, you would have thought that the speech of building bridges would have informed the looking for a consensus, looking for a win-win. That's what we're trying to do when we say we are building bridges. We're trying to find a solution where every Kenyan finds a place where they can belong. And like I said before, the funds that we're talking about that are supposed to be split up actually are going to our fellow Kenyans. It's not like they're taking away, we are losing this money and it's going to Uganda. It's going to our fellow brothers and sisters in this country. Or if people are gaining, it's not like the gainers are some people from Tanzania. It is our fellow Kenyans. So the lack of patriotism is something that is very worrying, because if our leaders cannot demonstrate it to us, then they cannot expect us to demonstrate the same. For example, the president yesterday was reiterating, buy Kenya, build Kenya. If we are going to raise that patriotism and a pride in this country, is this the way to do it? Our Senate needs to rise above the fray, and our Speaker especially needs to learn the art of moderating debate and not running away from it and saying, we come back and discuss this big Nini next week.
Okay, well, as we wait to see what will happen, the governors are crying out foul. The governors are calling upon the senators to figure out whatever it is that they can to ensure that they give us a solution to this. And you brought on board the aspect of the BBI joy, which, is one thing that the government, the president, and of course, the handshake counterparts are seeking to see that it sails through, as we discussed this time, saying that it is important we proceed to have a constitutional change, which is going to be healthy towards making changes for us. So, President plans to fast-track BBI report finding as a legacy, also talks bacon as it stands today. I mean, all this in one basket of the same president, all eyes on him to see to it that he's able to award us, a proper, way of addressing some of these key issues that have been captured or are being projected as it stands right now. What are the likelihoods that we're going to get anything, or what are the likelihoods that President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be successful, one, with the BBI, two, with ensuring that he leaves a legacy moving on? Alenga.
First and foremost, we must recognize that the BBI is the foundation of the truce between Honorable Raila Odinga and His Excellency the President. So, having understood that pretty well, then it calls for the President to remain committed to it and to do everything possible within his space to make sure that they attain the eventual goal of BBI. So if I look at the kind of preparations that happened basically in streamlining the House and the two houses, and also the other points of leadership in the country, that points to a registered commitment to the BBI initiative from the President's side. But it is important to also contextualize the BBI issue within the framework of the existing disagreements in the President's party itself. And then from there we can be able to ask ourselves, is it going to be a successful journey for him to push this BBI, or is he going to still encounter the same antagonism that he's been encountering even in various positions in the House?
Okay, as we wait to see what will happen in regards to the same, let's also take a look at what happened over the weekend and this meeting again by the key figures, trying to address matters politics, and this time around incorporating figures from Jubilee, that is Team Kieleweke, taking a look at figures from KANU and from ODM. This, of course, Francis Atwoli's, that is Co-True Secretary General Francis Atwoli's home. And this is not the first time this or such a meeting is being held. What are we likely to be treated to, or what surprise are we awaiting, looking at what has culminated from the meeting? These conversations that sometimes are, held in secret, or are, not laid out there for people to be able to hear or know the details of the same. What do you expect? What do you foresee, Joy, in such a scenario?
If I had a crystal ball, to answer your question.
Yeah.
No, because sometimes the Bible tells us what's discussed in secret shall be shouted from the rooftop.
Yeah.
All you have to wait is give Atwoli a microphone. And in 2 minutes, we'll know exactly what they discussed.
But at least we deliberate and we talk about these issues day in, day out. We can almost guess, just like Atwoli is known to be, good at guessing on what political angle the country will take, on what shifts we are likely to experience. You can almost guess what is likely to play out in this.
No, but I think one thing that we can say for certain, with the pictures that we saw yesterday, the caucusing must have been around what is supposed to happen today, with the special sitting at the Senate.
Okay, nothing to do with 2022 politics?
I think right now their biggest headache is cracking this Senate nut. And why this is important is because we have seen the way the President has been positioning the leadership in the Senate and the leadership in the National Assembly. And with the current COVID situation and with the economic situation, most of what we want to pass through BBI has to pass through Parliament. And that means the leadership in the National Assembly and the Senate must be able to deliver a yes vote for the President. And I think for them, this is an exam. Can you deliver a yes vote for me? So in this particular scenario, I would expect people who are meeting to find out if they can change tack, where they can find extra support, what strategies they can employ to silence or take away support from the other side. That's what, because you saw it wasn't just the Atwoli team that met, there was also the other team that met in a city hotel. So everybody is having this horse trading that is going on. So today, I guess we'll find out who was more successful in their strategies to try and get more support in their side. But that said, like I said earlier, this was a time when if there was going to be a meeting, I'm not expecting people to be preaching to the choir. You're talking to people who think like you. I would expect that consensus means you get a meeting with the people who don't think like you and look for the areas of common ground. We know that there are two other amendments that are waiting. There's the one I think by Senator Orengo and one other one that I forget. We already had Senator Warriors. Let's look at all the amendments. Let us look at like what the Sakaja side did with Linturi. They sat down, looked at their two amendments and said, you know what, these actually make sense, they can go together. That's how you build consensus. So what do we expect from what happened over the weekend? That's why I said absolutely nothing. Because people are preaching to the choir, talking to those people who already think like them. So today, are we going to see a softening opposition and saying, Mr. Speaker, we actually have an agreed amendment, and when you put it on the floor, everybody says aye, and we are happy? No, we're not going to see that. We'll be treated to another afternoon of a lot of argument, a lot of points of order, and at the end, it will be a hasty adjournment because of curfew, and we'll be back to square one.
All right. Do you read the same thing in this meeting, Alenga, or you have a different view in regards to the same? I mean, we are talking about a scenario where it's not the first time that these figures meet. Remember, almost the same people who were in this meeting are the same people who came on board, you know, with an addition of a few of them who also have met again within or amongst themselves, you know, on different forums. So, do you foresee the same thing? Is it about the Senate stalemate that we witnessed, or is it about 2022?
I want to largely agree with Joyce's perspective, or the way she looks at this, because when you see Atwoli meeting someone like James Agri Orengo, and then Maoka Maore, and Gideon Moi, a few other people, it points basically to the House, and not really about 2022.
So all this talk of, or maybe there is an endorsement of Gideon as number 2 to Right Honorable Raila Odinga, after that endorsement again from Murathe and Atwoli backing it in regards to him getting into or sailing into presidency?
That may be far-fetched, and I think that bit has already been discussed.
Okay, well, let's talk. Let's take us back to last week and the talks of the deep state. When you look at this formation, when you look at some of the figures within these meetings and all that, I mean, all the meetings across, is it fair to say that we do not have a deep state? Though Joy the other time was categorical that indeed we do have one.
No, I think, okay, even if we don't call it the deep state, there are definitely power brokers in this country. You yourself said that sometimes Atwoli predicts the future. Of course, Atwoli cannot predict the future, unless if he's part of the architects of the future. That's how you would know what's supposed to come. That's why when David Murathe speaks, we're like, you know what? Maybe it's like me, I was like, this is the opinion of an individual. But you countered and said, but he has talked before. And what he has said, even after 2 or 3 years, has come to pass. So unless you're the architect of what's supposed to happen in the future, you cannot have a crystal ball, or, you know, maybe you have a clairvoyant gift that tells you what's supposed to happen in the future. So definitely there's some people who know how to play this game called politics. They know how to position players in this game called politics, and they know how to leverage their influence so that the people that they front are able to succeed in whatever they want, the quest that they have. And that's why you even had Honorable Guru saying, you know what, Raila has never succeeded because he's never had the system with him. But this time he has the system. So yes, there is a system. It's not a fair comment to say that there's no deep state. In Kenya, I think we now it's apparently very clear to us that there is a system somewhere, and it is actually determining some of the outcomes that we are seeing right now. Some of the things that we are planning for the future are also being planned for us. So it's a matter of when we get there, do our plans align with what the deep state wants? Or will we be convinced otherwise to endorse what the deep state wants? So that's what remains to be seen.
Okay, well, let's drop that one and briefly take a look at that directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta to send his cabinet to, you know, leave days, 11, should be 11 days leave days, yeah? Starting or commencing today. What do you make of this? That was a good move based on the reasons that were presented yesterday. That is by Kinyo Joseph of Joseph Kimo, that is the head of public service, you know, saying that yes, the president still has confidence on the cabinet or his cabinet and has decided that they should go out there and rest based on the fact that they've been extremely busy and they need to come back rejuvenated to address the issues. But as it stands, everything is going to run as normal. No changes, no hiccups that are going to be witnessed even as the CSs are out or off. So many people have read so much into this, Alenga.
I think I'll pick up some point that Joy said at some point. She said that we're used to reading so much into stuff as Kenyans, and we will get a huge piece of information out of something very small. If I look at the recess, the cabinet recess, generally it's in their calendar that they go for such a break. But again, if you look at the point at which it is happening, it raises a little bit of suspicion. Is there a rearrangement going to happen soon after the break? But if you look at it technically, it might be a very compromising moment for the president to make any cabinet changes. So in my opinion, I may not really expect any changes at the moment.
Would it be handy to come in and make these changes, Joy, looking at how maybe the cabinet secretaries have been performing right now, looking at the fact that President Uhuru Kenyatta has the interest on attaining a legacy, and generally the performance anyway, of the CSAs, the PSAs for that matter? Is it wise, or would it be a good move to have President Uhuru Kenyatta come with some bit of changes?
That has been expected for a long time, but the changes are being looked at more in line of the purges that we have seen recently in the political space. And so when this cabinet was being formed, at that time there was still some relationship between the president and his deputy. And so maybe there's some CASs were seen to be allied or aligned with the deputy president. I think right now everybody has done a pretty good job of distancing themselves. Whether this distance is sufficient or not remains to be seen. And so every time there's a talk about a possible reshuffle, we're expecting, that purge now is extending to the executive, is extending to the cabinet. But be that as it may, now this is, let me say, rumor, conjecture, word on the street. There are some CASs where people were feeling, you know what, Duda has served his time, especially some who have come over from the first administration, whose performance has been either checkered with maybe controversies and scandals along the way, or who have been completely lackluster. People know General Badi better than they know some of these CSs. And there are some PSs also who have been there for a really long time. Maybe it is time for new, fresh faces. Some of the CASs have performed very well, and people might want to see them coming into government, like we saw with CS Magoha, where he did well at an administrative level and was gotten into the executive position. So maybe that is what Kenyans would be sort of angling for. But the statement from the president was fairly categorical, from Joseph Kino, was fairly categorical at this time. So we might wait and it doesn't happen. And I don't think right now is the time the president wants to rock the boat, because you said he has legacy to deliver. He has already squandered a lot of goodwill in the National Assembly and in the executive. This is not the time to rock the boat such that your inner circle cannot really work. He already has a fairly good strategy. He's got very strong lieutenants. His inner circle has got very strong CSs. They are in the most important dockets. And so far, I think he's managing to get done what he needs to get done. But that said, it would be good to see just, a little shake up. I guess people have become a bit too comfortable, too complacent. Maybe a change is as good as a rest. And the ones who are not very effective in the docket where they are, maybe it's also a time to just send them to somewhere that's a little bit more comfortable or easier for them to perform.
All right. Time factor is one thing. First of all, in as much as maybe, as Lenga would argue, this is something that is enshrined, and it's important that they proceed to recess or proceed to rest and on leave days. Probably most of the people did not see this coming, and especially at this time of COVID-19, when the CSS should be actively involved, trying to figure out what next for the country amid these tough times of COVID-19. We've seen what the education sector has gone through, the tourism sector, the finance sector, and generally all the sectors have been in a huge way affected. So questions coming on board, are we even going to see the likes of Mutahi Kagwe going for break, or the likes of Magoha go for break and all that? But yes, as they say, activities will run. Do you suppose there could have been a better time for the president to give this order than this time?
Let me just jump in real quick.
All right.
Because I think part of what was said was that this was not entirely a break. It was a working break. So they're expected to go back to the ground, look at the projects that have been going on. So they're not, what they're taking a break from maybe is the cabinet meetings and things like that. So this is supposed to be a time where even as you rest, go around and see what is happening, go around and engage with the ground, because a big criticism of our technocrats, yes, is what we gave ourselves in our constitution was that many of them had no feeling of what was going on the ground. Some of them have got a few messes that they need to clear up. Like you correctly pointed out, in health ministry, there are quite a few things that need to be sorted out. The education docket is a shambles. I have said here before. I don't think CS Magoha and his team is thinking creatively about how to help children in this COVID season to get back into learning. They're just like, they keep them at home until this thing is all over, and we're not seeing anything towards planning. So there's also a time to go back to the drawing board. You've got time to call your team together, strategize, regroup, and relaunch. So it's not go home to your wife, I'll see you after 2 weeks. No, it's I'm not going to see you in the next 2 weeks, but in that 2 weeks when you come back, I want a report of what's going on the ground. So I think that's where we are.
All right, and yes, as I loop in Alega, do we expect them to come on board revamped and you know set and ready to deal with the issues that face us as a country to a point whereby we will be guaranteed of some huge changes that are going to be friendly and important at this time we are dealing with COVID-19, especially to get us afloat?
Leader, it was quite conspicuous that after COVID-19 hit this country, there's been a lot of lack of coordination in terms of different departments running the country, and I think it got everyone unawares, and there needed to be a time when we can just break the shell and go away in different directions and figure out what mitigations you want for your department, or what new ideas you have for the ministry you're leading. So I think it was technical for the president to give the cabinet to go for this break so that they can just regroup and figure out what new thing they are bringing on board. And basically, given that the president is remaining with less than about 715 days or so in office, so it's really and there was really a need for that technical break to refigure themselves out. I think that's pretty much what necessitated that break.
Okay, well, let's wait and see once they come back what it is that they will have in store for us, or whether indeed there's going to be some changes or not. Yes, like I say, it's a question of wait and see. Remember, it's important that you're part of this conversation as we proceed. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela 22047 is the SMS shortcode. Drop your comments as we proceed with the show. We get to sample some of them. Now, let's come back to Nairobi, or go a little bit less and talk matters Nairobi. The changes that we witnessed last week, and here we are, and Nairobi is in search of a deputy governor to address the stalemate that stands at this point. Noble move, Joy?
It's a necessary move, because if you think about it, we have a governor who's not fully in office because he's facing some sanctions with the courts, so he's not able to function. We have a speaker who has vacated, appointed a deputy who is facing party disciplinary functions. We don't have a substantive head running Nairobi right now, if you think about it. NMS is not supposed to be administering anything with the county government. They have their docket, so you cannot count on them. So do we need a deputy governor? Yes, we do. We need somebody to be responsible at City Hall. If our governor faces sanction from the court and is unable to return to work, somebody needs to be able to take over without necessitating a by-election. So Nairobi needs a deputy governor like we have needed for the last 2-3 years. So it's something that is way long overdue.
All right, Lega, what do you make of it amid all the shenanigans that we've been treated to as Nairobians, and how then will this come in handy to us ensuring that activities are streamlined in the city?
looking at Nairobi County, you'll realize that there was a big fall in terms of service delivery to the people of Nairobi, and that is why the NMS came through. But the NMS is basically concerned with delivery of services, in particular dockets that were handed over to them. However, we need a political and an administrative state within the county, and that would have been propagated by the governor, who, as Joy rightly puts, is facing a lot of personal issues and accountability issues and leadership issues. Again, when you look at the assembly, it's disorganized and completely discombobulated in a way that it cannot really stand up and legislate anything on behalf of Nairobians. And then if you look at last time when we were on this discussion, I said the exit of the speaker Beatrice Elachi and the discussion, the reining in by the president to meet NMS together with the governor was a hint that there is, like in my words, I actually say that was a Trojan horse. So when that is actually followed by calls to have a deputy governor, then it tends to give flesh to my suspicion that Sonko would, in a certain way, be fixed in the next few days.
All right. Well,
yeah. Say I'm in deep.
Sorry?
No, but I'm thinking.
Okay. Yes, Joy.
Sonko is a survivor. Sonko is a survivor in this city and is extremely popular. So if you're going to deal with a politician of Sonko's stature, it cannot be a guest job. It has to be something deeply nuanced, very cleverly done, and it has to be something that sticks. Because if we pull a stance that is not very sound, Nairobi could very easily become volatile and very ungovernable. So this is a very delicate balance at this point.
Yes, both for the government, that is the national government, and equally for Mike Sonko, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Well,
because Sonko, as I've said here earlier, Sonko is a sort of politician. Even the next general election, if perchance he decides to run again and is cleared to run again, he could still be our next governor. So he's a type of person who, how you handle him will also determine how the capital city of this nation is going to run for the next, possibly another 7 years. So he's not somebody who you can say, we can bury politically like we did with Waititu. Yeah. Sonko is a different breed. And in Nairobi, he has a hold on a certain category of voters who believe in him, like we say in the streets, wanamwamini kama dawa. They believe in him 100%. So even in handling Sonko, you need to have kid gloves, but that's why a deputy governor is important. Yeah. Because if anything happens, especially with the courts, you need to have somebody substantively in place, moving the city forward.
Speaking of Nairobi, Huduma centers, that is the GPO Huduma centers, are set to open starting today. For the longest of time, Kenyans have not been able to access some of these services that are crucial at this point in time. And this comes again also with regulations and guidelines that have been set towards ensuring that even as they open, even as activities continue, then the Kenyans are not going to spread or are not going to be out there, spreading the COVID-19 virus. Was it long overdue, so to speak, Alenga?
It's pretty good that the Huduma centers have opened, because there is a lot of Kenyans that depend on those centers for certain services that are very crucial. But again, my conversation has been around COVID-19 has been, let us shift the management of COVID-19 or the protective aspect of COVID-19 from being a government directive to being a personal initiative. So if the government can now work at driving this narrative to the common person to be able to take care of themselves rather than obey the government in certain measures, you no longer have to wear a mask to avoid the police arresting you. You no longer have to avoid social distancing just because there's somebody looking at you. But can this be part of our way of life? Because COVID-19 has changed our way of life. It has shifted us from acting normally to just adopting to a different way of life. Then can we just put that into our system, and then do it from our common point, like the way you just look left and right and make sure there's no vehicle coming, then you cross the road. The police officer doesn't have to be there.
Okay, and speaking of which, takes me back to the report that we received the other day in regards to how much you've been able to adapt to the changes that come along with COVID-19. And most of the people have resorted to, going online, digitizing almost all activities in respective offices. And even before we started, I remember Joy saying that we have reduced them to cameras, where they have to pull and ensure that they adjust the picture very well, so we are able to get a good picture like we have right now. And Joy, the report said that, more than 3/4 of the people in the civil service are, above 45, and most of them are not able to adjust to the technological, events of the day. They're not able to use their smartphones. They probably do not even own smartphones. Could this have informed this move that, then activities are stalled up across different sectors in the government, so there's need that we have them come physically to the office?
No, there's some things that you cannot really block physical contact 100%. So, for example, I've been in need for a long time for a certificate of good conduct for professional services. And you apply online, but there's the bit where they need to take your fingerprints. That's not something you can do any other way other than turning up there. Now, this is a failure on the part of whoever designed the system, because this is not the first time that my fingerprints have been taken for official purposes. I have a passport, I have an ID. This would be like my 4th or 5th certificate of good conduct that I'm going for. So my fingerprints have been taken over and over again. The fact that you don't have an integrated database tells me that there is a blip in the system. Either that or the system is generated so that you keep seeking the service that they keep generating income. So there is a way to rethink and reimagine those particular strategies. Then what you have correctly pointed out, we are technologically challenged. There is, like right now, my sector in the law courts, they have rolled out a program for judicial filing of cases. But the system is wrought with so many blips and glitches that it's like pulling teeth. It's excruciating. I get to a place where I call some of my younger associates and I'm like, just do this, call me when it's done. Because most of us have got a pretty busy lifestyle. You want to have a process that is, seamless. I start here and I know when I'm done with this, this is where it goes. So we have to come to a place where even our online systems have to be easy enough to use that anybody can plug in. And this is not rocket science, because I'm sure Lelati and we've been privileged to travel to a few other jurisdictions where you can go through an entire trip without having to talk to anyone for any instructions. Everything is automated. All you have to do is read the signs, go to the website, get the app, and you'll be able to navigate, even in a country where you don't speak the country, because everything has been made such that the common man can use it. So I guess this is an opportunity also for Kenya to rise up. We keep saying that Konza is our new Silicon Valley, that we've got innovation and we are moving forward. This is the time for coders and writers and programmers to wow us and give us things that actually work. Because what we have seen in Kenya is our automated systems almost set up to be too bulky so they fail, so that we go back to paper and pen. So this is a chance for us to make that transition for good, so that some of these things, once you're done, you're done.
Well, okay, and if need be, of course, if adjustments are needed, then who are you to be left behind? It's important to equally proceed and adjust on the same. Different issue altogether. Also on Mitumbas, now that we are talking about what it is that is being brought back, of course, to the people. So yes, there's been that ban that has been lifted on importation of Mitumba. Of course, again, comes along with some restrictions, and we saw aside, faces with, that seemed to have that sigh of relief finally, that they're going to go out there and make money. Alenga, what are the likelihoods that we're going to be successful in the fight of COVID-19, even as we struggle as a country to ensure that we bring back things to normalcy, which again will take a while?
I think, in my opinion, banning the sale of Mutumba due to COVID-19 was a little bit far-fetched. But again, it boils down to our reactions as a country. We are used to reacting based on sentimentality rather than data and science. So I think that was an entire livelihood being blocked out of the business transaction, basically because somebody felt that the second-hand clothes would bring in the virus. And then I think the lift is a good thing, and again that will teach the guys handling this cargo and even the traders to resolve to come up with personal protective measures, and that continues to strengthen us as a people in the fight, in our individual fights against the virus, not which pushes away the need to make it like a government battle or a government initiative to keep us safe.
All right, and yes?
But Kenyans also reacting to a lot of social media propaganda. I don't know if you saw those videos of Chinese wiping their feet and rubbing faces in clothes. And some of these things, like Kalala said, it's not even based on science. You don't even know what it's based on.
Yeah.
It's just bias and the fear of the unknown. We did not know enough about the virus at the time. But now we do know. The amount of time that those clothes spend on the high seas, the conditions under which they are wrapped, the virus would not survive. Even if they actually infuse it. The time they get
even the clearance process.
But what is this that has brought us here, honestly, to a point whereby, yes, we can be racist and apologetically, and
Linda, we've worn Mtumba for how long? You are greater risk of getting scurvy from the Mtumba clothes than you are ringworm, than you are from getting COVID. But at the time, I guess, because the science was still, it was largely unknown, and people had a morbid fear of anything Chinese, then you saw the reaction as it was. And it's ironic, but now you're seeing the Chinese in Kenya, when they come amongst us, they're walking around in PPEs like pallbearers. It's ridiculous. And they're the ones who started this whole thing. So, I mean, what goes around comes around. We served it, now we serve. So, let's...
All right, well, that's interesting to know right there. And yes, I think I agree to what Joy says, that, as Kenyans, let's stop overreacting to some of these clips that we see making rounds the social media. It's important that you make your arguments, or you base your arguments based on facts and figures, scientific facts for that matter, which, as a global fraternity, we've not even been able to attain any. Speaking of which, amid this time of COVID-19, we witness Al-Shabaab attacks. We are treated to fear as it stands right now. What is not going on? Why is it that people are so insensitive? At this time, is Al-Shabaab changing its attack? And are we likely to brace ourselves for more attacks in the event that we are not careful, or in the event that the governments do not do something?
I don't think it's changing tact. I think it is making hay while the sun shines. This is a time when some people have realized there is an opportunity. People are more lax. They have taken a step back. There is an opportunity. We've always wanted to do this. So they also were afraid for the past 5 months. But now I think everybody, even around the world, guys have come to a place where they have normalized COVID-19 and they're resuming their normal activities. So we have seen in the UK, for example, there's a current hashtag going on, let fans back in. We have seen sports meetings starting to happen again, and in some places even with fans. We have seen political activity resuming. Right now, we've got several countries that are preparing for major elections, from our neighbors in Tanzania to the States. So we've come to a place where even Al-Shabaab are resuming normal operations after an outbreak. So it's up to us to wise up the fact that not everybody is in the house afraid of COVID. People are back doing what they want to do. So we need to up our vigilance. I think it was a wake-up call, very unfortunate, but it was a wake-up call that, look, if we thought that the world has forgotten everything that had happened before COVID, think again. People just hit the pause button, and now the ice has thawed. Guys are back in action.
All right, Alenga, what do you make of this? Yeah?
had become even security in buildings had become so lax.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to now start being vigilant again.
Yes, we're trying to bring out the comic bit of this, but reality is that it's a serious matter. Alenga, what do you make of this, and technically what it is that Joy brings on board in terms of point, which are very, very pertinent? I mean, should we tighten the noose right now and know that, yes, it's not business as usual?
I will agree that when COVID-19 happened, it changed a lot of things in this country, and it literally, even the whole world, it literally took us into something like sort of a war.
Yeah.
So even our response was like a response in times of war. So all our efforts were directed towards the pandemic, and then it creates another loophole for these devious agents of Al-Shabaab and start to take advantage of the situation. But if we are dealing with terrorists, these are people who do not have a clear strategy. They do not have a time frame within which they will commit this kind of crime. They do not have a calendar. They strike when they find the smallest opportunity, and they are ever trying to attack. So it is important for us to just strengthen our intelligence and strengthen our border points. And also the homeland security, because basically, as we have been able to see in the past attacks, we saw a lot of radicalization of our own people into agents of Al-Shabaab. But again, most important to note and to give the intelligence departments credit is that there's a lot of attempts to attack Kenya that have been nipped in the bud by the security agents. So they're actually doing a tremendous job that we, the ordinary people, may never understand, but deep down there on everyday basis, hour after hour, there's a terrorist attempt that is being nipped in the bud.
Okay. Well, today we've done fairly good in terms of picking up on the subjects that we are discussing right now. And last but not least, I would want to know whether you people are comfortable discussing this talk of, monies that have been lost as the country continues to deal with COVID-19, different revelations coming on board. Of course, we all witnessed what played out in one of the local stations in a piece that was and is still being debated on as it stands today. Really, we all started by saying this as if it was a joke, that, by the time we're done dealing with COVID-19, we're going to have COVID-19 millionaires. And even before we get to that point, we already have them. Or so to speak, Joy.
Yes, we do. The problem, I think, with even the expose yesterday, or the attempt at an expose yesterday, was that sometimes we never really get to the bottom of these things. All you know is that there's definitely something wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
Because with the kind of push that we saw at the beginning, when you still hear health workers saying, we don't have PPEs, we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough. And we kept wondering, okay, so where is all these facilities that we are seeing, all these things we are seeing being donated, where is all this going? So what we saw yesterday, I think, was sort of, if you're look in this direction. I don't think there's anything there that is actionable. Now I'm talking as a lawyer. The standard of evidence is a lot higher than what we saw yesterday. But what it does do, it tells you, look, if you are looking for these things, maybe you want to look in this direction. If you want to start this conversation, maybe you want to start here. And I hope, because the president was very categorical, and he said, not a single shilling of this COVID funds will get lost. Yeah. The CS Health has also been very categorical. He has said he's going to dismantle the cartels in Afia House and in the health-related.
For how long? Remember, right from that time, we're talking about 4 million, was it Mandazi and Chai and everything? And up until today, the CS has not even appeared to represent to us this report, which he promised. He said he's going to present, he's going to give us a breakdown on the same.
Not just to us, but you saw PS Mochache being sent away the last time, being told, you know what, we summoned your CS, we did not summon you, please go away, tell him to come and appear himself. This is an opportunity for the government to really demonstrate that they are serious about the war on graft. The war on graft has been very large this year. It's been one of the drivers of the president's legacy 3 items. And with this war on graft, it can't just be, random shadow boxing. Here is a live case before him. We are all looking to see how he will prosecute this one, because the seriousness with which Kenyans have taken COVID, the way they have donated, given their time and their money, the rallying behind the cause, and then the money is lost to individuals' pockets. This is one of those things that could have a major fallout with the Kenyan population. So on this instance, I think what has happened is sort of stirring of the waters. So I'm hoping in the next few days to see the COVID Emergency Response Committee telling us exactly where they have sent the money to, who they have given it to, and what accountability they have. And the Council of Governors to step up, because they have also been mentioned as some of the people who are likely, we need to look in that direction in terms of the likely misappropriation or properly appropriating the funds. We have to look at now institutions like KEMSA and the others who are involved in procuring, find out more robustly, because I think what the investigative journalism can do is sort of point a finger in a certain direction, but everything is so guarded and so secret, so you really can't action anything. But it has told us, you know what, there is a conversation here, let us have it.
All right, well, let's have this conversation as we take a look at, the report coming on board in regards to matters KEMSA. And the governors now seek to divorce KEMSA or stay away from them. I mean, this amid these talks that KEMSA, officials have shipped quotas of the JACMA COVID-19 donations to a different country, talks of, yes, they are missing. And, we cannot be able to quite say this unless investigations are hugely conducted and we have facts or base our arguments on facts. But reality is that we are missing money. Reality is that we are missing these PPEs that we're talking about. Reality is that some of the equipments that have been donated to us are missing in action. What way, Alenga? Forward.
First and foremost, Linda, it is embarrassing for us to even be talking about this.
Yeah.
It gives a very bad impression to the international community that has stood with us in the time of this pandemic. It also gives a bad impression to ordinary Kenyans that have participated in the efforts to contribute some funds to help us fight this pandemic. But as I would counterpoint.
Alenga, allow me to cut you short briefly. Distract your line of thought, and let's pick this phone call. Good morning.
Morning, Peter.
How are you? I'm fine, thank you.
Fine.
Who's this speaking? Oh, Kalisa Swafula. Kindly weigh into the discussion.
I feel very bitter.
Yeah.
Kenyans looking at the monthly the government is first of all, I want to talk about the shareholder declaration. I think the president has to tax some people.
Right.
And there are three ones that we take automatically for one, for example. Then there is the Professor Apoha, was very competent. There is the Macharia. I don't know why the president keeps on rotating. People have proven that they are not the warriors of Kenya. Because these are the people that are supporting impunity. These are people with management of pandemic has witnessed the country. If you see people reporting against it in Mombasa, places like Mombasa, it has the COVID-19 cases continue there because the environment is very friendly to the pandemic. But the government has kept on giving us giving information. About Nairobi, is one of the top here songs. I think Songo the shell to understand Nairobi because people elected him and decided to hand over his power.
Right.
Then started to complain after not without consulting Kenya. So consulting the right people now, we are sending complaints. I think Songo is not someone that people can trust. Those who are talking about Jumba, we support that the government should expand Jumba because there are many Kenyans who are in.
Right.
All these people think when they are doing well, other Kenyans are also enjoying life as they do. But it is bitter for us as Kenyans to witness the government that is making decisions that going to affect our people negatively. I think that is what I can say. But that's not the government. The government is not doing well. And I will expect the president to done several except Matiang'i. He should
Thank
give
you.
the Minister of Health and Education Matiang'i to work as he can do better than him, Makoha and Taika. That is what I can say.
Okay, thank you so much, Wafula Callistus, for the great insights in regards to the topics that we've touched on matters education, on matters changes of the cabinet, and also, lastly, on also matters corruption, as we were talking about. And he says, we've devolved corruption, we've recycled corruption, corrupt figures, we are sanitizing corruption. So, is the government... Sorry?
Are we back on air?
Yeah, we are back on air, and of course, still coming back to Lenga so that he can, weigh in on his sentiments. Also, sorry for distracting your line of thought, but I'm sure you're able to again gather them back and tell us what it is that you're saying, also in reaction to what Wafula Callistus has said. Alenga, we lost you? Joy, you there?
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Alenga.
Okay, fantastic. Let me pick up from where I left.
Yes.
I was actually agreeing with Joy's point of view that there needs to be a lot of evidence to be able to take action on the culprit. This.
All right. And I don't know whether you've heard what it is that Callistus has said, the fact that he says, maybe there's need for some changes to be incorporated within the cabinet. I don't know whether there's enough time for that. But he also argues that we're not genuine in how we want to fight corruption because, well, corruption has been devolved, corruption has been, corrupt figures have been recycled, and, we have gone ahead to sanitize corruption as it stands today. Joy. Wafula Callistus must have gone with the audio of Joy and Alenga. Alenga, are you there? Well, sadly we've lost them, but all the same, it's exactly 8:05. So I will assume that at least we've done justice to the subjects of the day, and we hope to expound some more on these issues as we proceed for the entire week. So before we get to wind up, now that we have them back, Joy and Alenga, what do you make of the utterances of Wafula Callistus, especially on the genuineness of us dealing with corruption in the country, and his proposals that there is probably need for us to make changes on the cabinet? Well, I think Joy had said something about that, but to hear from you, Alenga, as we wind up.
Like I was just saying, we need to cultivate a high level of integrity in this country. We need to be responsible for every resource that is put into our hands. But we have turned into a country where those people that are not stealing are just the people that have not found anything to steal. And it's a very, it's a very disappointing place to find ourselves. Yeah. And we cannot fight graft from government's position only. We cannot expect the president to fight graft. But you as an individual, when you're put in a position and given resources, why do you steal them?
All right, Joy, as we wind up in a minute or so.
And I think the point that Alenga has brought is very, very important.
Right.
When we put Article 10 in our Constitution, when we put Chapter 6 in our Constitution, we were saying this has become part of our national psyche. When the BBI was talking about...
We lost Joy again, and on that very note, we will not wait to have them back. Let's get to wind up on that very note as we cross over to the lifestyle segment. And today we are all about the do's and don'ts on matters cosmetics, or what it is that we do right and what is it that we do wrong. We have a consultant and a cosmetologist on board. They're going to take us through this session, and I'm sure you will love to hear this because we all do makeup at some point in time, and it's important that we do it right so we do not have our faces or our bodies affected for that matter. So after this break, we're right back.